Hi everyone, it's Tracy and I am here for my December decks video. I will run through the decks that I have used this month. Again, I am trying an experiment where I use one tarot deck and one oracle deck a week to decide what's going to stay in my collection and what's not going to stay in my collection. And here's my roundup of the month of December. And I started the first week of December with the Chrysalis Tarot. And this is an absolutely beautiful deck. The artwork is just amazing. It kind of has its own system. It's one of those decks that I would consider kind of a hybrid, where it veers enough off of the Rider-Waite-Smith path to where you couldn't say it follows the Rider-Waite-Smith system, but at the same time, some cards, like this Eight of Spirals, which is the Eight of Wands, stick very closely to the Rider-Waite-Smith system. So it's kind of, I have a bit of a hard time with it because of that. The one thing I do really love about this deck, though, are the court cards, because I can really get very good intuitive messages from the images, because they're also active. They aren't just sitting on a throne. They all seem to be doing something. So this one's going to stay. I think I need to work with it some more to completely and fully get to know it. But it's just so beautiful that I think it's something that I'm willing to work with. And you can see I have actually edged this deck in. This isn't Sharpie. This is a gold stamp pad, which takes longer to dry but makes a more satisfying shade of gold when you use it. I do also have the book, you can see, that goes with it, but to be perfectly honest, I preferred the little white book for this one to the big book. So Chrysalis Tarot is a keeper. I'm going to keep that in my collection. And in week one with the Chrysalis Tarot, I also used the Enchanted Map oracle cards. And this deck is fine. I can't say specifically that I loved anything particular about this deck. I was always looking forward to pulling cards with the Chrysalis. I didn't particularly look forward to pulling cards from the Enchanted Map. I'm discovering with this experiment that I prefer my oracle decks to be extremely explicit in their imagery, so that I could have a look at the picture and maybe the keywords and really get a message from it. And some of these cards I can. Look at that rock bottom. That makes perfect sense to me. I get that. But some of the other ones, I had to absolutely go look in the book to see what was intended. And I'm not going to get rid of this one either. I have the map book on my Kindle, and one of these days when I have some time, I'll get around to reading it, and I think then this deck will make more sense. Not that it doesn't make sense as a standalone on its own, but it wasn't anything special. I didn't get excited to use it. But again, I'm going to keep it. And then week two, I pulled out a deck that has been my nemesis, you could say. And oops, that's the Wild Unknown. And we've all seen the Wild Unknown. I'm not pulling out any cards from the Wild Unknown. This is my second copy of the Wild Unknown. I had a copy when the mass-produced deck came out. I never had one of the indie versions. And I worked with it for a very short period of time and then traded it away. But then I kept seeing everybody's pictures on Instagram and on YouTube, and I decided to get it back, so I bought it again. Still hadn't been using it that much, so I pulled it out as part of this challenge, and we're getting along a little bit better now. It's minimalistic, and it doesn't have people, and I will admit, I like people. I like people in my decks where I can actually read their facial expressions, because that's going to give me the best hit the way my brain and my psyche works is to see a facial expression. You see, this is the Seven of Pentacles. That's a little sparse. And I don't know that I could get a real hit from that without having a core meaning that I already have. And then there's a few of these very disturbing, but it sends a clear message. I very much understand what that's saying. So, but I have a better understanding now of the Wild Unknown, and I definitely love the way it feels, and the artwork's very nice. So it's going to stay in my collection, especially since this is the second time I got it. You know, that's telling me something. I had to have it again. And the Oracle deck I used with the Wild Unknown is The Universe Has Your Back. And I really liked this deck, guys. I really did. I have times, I'm a bit of a mess sometimes, and I have times where I don't want a tarot reading. And I don't necessarily even want an oracle reading. I have times where I need some little affirmation that tells me, you can get through this, you can do this, you have what it takes. And this deck helps a lot with that. I just love the artwork. It's so beautiful. It does have you need to have some sort of faith in something outside of yourself for this deck to work for you. And I'm working on that because I think I lost all faith for a while. But I have discovered that I'm happier and life is easier for me when I have some sort of faith that there is some power out there greater than me that I can turn to. It could be, the universe, it could be Gaia, it could be God, I don't know what it is. But this deck sort of taps into that without being explicitly religious. And I really like it. Oh, look at that. I mean, that's a beautiful, beautiful card. And it's so true. My outer experiences are a reflection of my internal condition. So I can journal on that one sentence for hours. I'm a word person. I get more from a short sentence than I do just from an image. So this deck just really works for me. And I like it. And I'm going to keep it. Okay, that was week 2. The Wild Unknown and the Universe Has Your Back. Then in week 3, I used the Inner Child cards as a tarot deck. And what this deck has done is it comes with this big hardback book, but they've taken the Rider-Waite-Smith meanings and associated them to fairy tales and other sorts of things sort of related to fairy tales. Like this is the Guardian of Crystals, which is basically the King of Pentacles. And this is someone who is protective of Earth. It's supposed to represent Gaia, but it definitely has the meaning of a King of Pentacles. And here we have the Guardian Angel, which is supposed to be Temperance. And it has the same meaning as Temperance, basically. Some of them worked better than others. The Fairy Godmother as the High Priestess, it was a bit of a stretch to see the Fairy Godmother as the High Priestess. That the Fairy Godmother in the Cinderella story, is she holding secrets? Maybe, maybe not. But then some of them worked really well. Like the Star card is wishing upon a star and throwing a coin into a wishing well, and I could work with that. That one worked for me. And the Wheel of Fortune, Alice in Wonderland on a merry-go-round. Yeah, sure, absolutely, that makes sense. Because the Alice in Wonderland story, she ends up in all kinds of crazy places and never knows what's coming next and feels like she's going around in circles. And then I also have to admit, I did pull this card during that week. The Guide of Crystals, which I believe is the Knight. It could be the Queen. is Father Christmas, Santa Claus. But then there's some like this, the Seven of Wands. This is the Seven of Wands. It has the meaning of the Seven of Wands. Basically, sort of, not quite. So this one really didn't work for me. This one will be going into my pile to trade. It's cards are absolutely huge, and I have an older edition that has thick and sturdy cardstock because I heard the newer editions had really flimsy cardstock, but this is thick cardstock and is rather hard to hold. I'll see here. I'll get you a comparison of the size. They're absolutely huge. So the inner child cards are not going to stay with me. And then the Oracle deck that I used with the inner child cards was the Keepers of the Light Oracle cards by Kyle Gray. I partook in the madness of the Hay House sale where you could get, I don't remember how much, were they $5 a piece, or I can't remember, $7.50. They were half price. I think they were half price. And I got 4 decks, and I took some chances on some things that I normally wouldn't get. And I was interested in, I heard these were Ascended Master cards, and I was interested in learning more about Ascended Masters because I know absolutely nothing. And I found this deck a bit disappointing. First of all, I don't particularly like there's just their faces. And they all have the same expression. Sort of a kind of, they're just staring off into space. They're not particularly making any expression or paying any attention. And I was also hoping that the book would do more to tell me about the Ascended Master, and it really doesn't. And some of them aren't even Ascended Masters. They're just, there's Charity. That's and some of them are. Some of them are, I don't know that I really understand what an Ascended Master is, but I thought it was somebody who was supposed to have at one point or another been alive and then ascended to a higher plane. I couldn't be mistaken. Jesus, I would say, would be, yes, Ascended Master. Cernunnos, is he an Ascended Master or is he a myth? Odin, is he an Ascended Master or is he a myth? So, not really that fond of this deck. This deck's going to go. It also, there was some damage to it from the get-go. But I'll give you an example. This is Dwal Kul, and it gives, in the book, I'm reading from the book, it has his name, and it has the same text that's here on the card. And it says, Dwal Kul, known as the Tibetan, is a Tibetan Buddhist master. He is said to have had many incarnations, including as a devotee of Buddha himself, and as one of the 3 wise men who honored the baby Jesus. Well, that's interesting. That's good. Through his earthly experiences, he has learned the importance of spiritual practice and discipline, and knows the path we are on unfolds over time. He is now helping light workers follow their dharma, which is a Sanskrit word meaning right way of living. Well, we got 2 sentences about who this guy was, and I was just really hoping for more. And then there's an extended message that just says, when Dwal Kul appears in a reading, he reminds you that your path is unfolding as it should. Take one step at a time and remember that your only spiritual function is to be happy. You're a powerful person with many lessons under your belt and a real capacity to share your wisdom with the world. Take the time to go over what you've learned recently. Recognize the strengths that has brought you and acknowledge where you have been courageous. Dwal Kul is now working with your angel guides to help your journey unfold like a beautiful lotus flower, one petal at a time. Lovely message. It doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work for me. And this one, hey, I found the one that has the nicest face. He's got a somewhat smile on his face. He doesn't look like he's staring off into space. This one, that's kind of creepy. This one looks kind of angry. But yeah, this is not a deck that's for me. It's not a deck I'm going to work with. And it did, right out of the box, it was a little damaged. I don't know if you can read that, but you can see the sort of the glossy coating has peeled off on a couple of the cards there. So I don't even think I'll try to trade this one or anything. It's, I don't know, if somebody gets one of my other decks, they might get one of these decks too, just because I want to get rid of it. Okay, and then this week I have been using the Arthurian Tarot, which we've all seen if we watch Lisa at the Tarot Alchemist. And I'm enjoying this deck. It's a little more complicated than I had expected. The book is fabulous. I haven't read the whole book. I have been doing daily draws with it. This reminds me of Lord of the Rings, that swamp where the dead people were, in the swamp. But the book is just really very interesting. I had a really hard time. Today my card was this first one, the Green Knight, who is supposed to be the devil. And I read the story that's associated with the Green Knight, and I just don't know if I see it as the devil. But I think I need to do some more work with this deck to see how everything ties together. And the book is so fabulous, and it has, the new edition has both books all wrapped up into one. I pulled this one day too, and this one was just spot on. It made perfect sense. So definitely keeping the Arthurian Tarot. And then the last one that I've been using in December is the Fool's Wisdom. The Fool's Wisdom Oracle cards. This was the second deck that I got in the Hay House. And I actually really like this deck. The book does talk about God and Jesus a little bit here and there. But the messages are just so empowering in the book that I don't have a problem with that. And some of them I prefer to use without the book. The little image of the Fool and the little bit of text underneath with the Fool's Wisdom is enough to get me exactly what I need. So I really like this deck, and this one isn't huge. It's glossy, but it's not terribly glossy, and I can handle this one. So I like this deck, and I'm going to keep this deck. This one's really cool. And then I've also acquired a couple more decks that I haven't used too much this month, but that I have been enjoying having in my collection. And this one is the Spirit Song. And I got this one. I've been taking a tarot class this year, an in-person tarot class, which wasn't really a tarot class. If I were teaching a tarot class, I would do it very differently. But it did give me an opportunity to meet some other people who are interested in tarot in my own hometown, which was very important. And as a parting gift, the last class we had, we each got to pick out a deck, and this is the deck that I picked out. I really think it's beautiful. It is very gentle. The keywords are gentle, and some of the names have been changed. But we do love Paulina Cassidy's artwork. And yeah, I really like this, and a lot of thought went into which animals to use for each card. So really like that one. And then I did finally bite the bullet, and from Etsy I got the Distant Past Tarot, which is a fine arts collage deck, and I love this deck. And I think it's mostly because of the colors of the sky. All of these aquas that we have in the skies in this deck are just so exquisite. And that was what drew me to that. Beautiful, to this deck. Some of the names have been changed on some of the majors because she did create it for her daughter. Now, she didn't say how old her daughter was, but it doesn't come with a book, but it comes with some extra cards. And I just love it. And let's see if I can find the card. There was one card that it was like, that's the one. I'm going to buy this deck because of that one card. Here it is. No, that's not it. It was the Queen of Wands. Let's see if I can find her. Of course, she will be the last one in the deck because I'm looking for her. Oh well, I can't seem to find her. Here she is. Sorry about that. This is the woman who made me buy the deck because I just thought she was absolutely beautiful, and I love all those sunflowers. So, yep, I really like this one. I'm going to be working with this one a good bit. Well, thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.